Hi, welcome back to Art and Soul. My name is Mike Severin. I'm so glad you could join me again today. Thank you for letting me come into your home every week. Really means a lot to me, and I hope that you've had a really good week, been creative, and maybe been able to do some painting yourself since last week. It's been a couple of weeks for me since I've been able to paint because of messing up my shoulder, and it's still not right, but we're going to give this little bit of a painting show today and see if we can get through it without killing my shoulder too bad. This painting that's on the canvas here is one I had a couple of people. This was back, I think, in December when we were having problems with, not problems, but there was some conflict with the studio time because of the holidays, etc. So I recorded a little show from my studio at home, and this is one that I had started, and a couple of people have asked about it. So I thought, well, I was going through things and found it, so I thought, well, we'll go ahead and paint that, finish that up tonight. So here we are. What this is, I'll just kind of briefly go through what we've got. I just put a simple little sky here. We're going to develop this a little more up here with some of the highlights on these clouds. A little mountain with some foothills that are here. I haven't quite decided what we're going to do here. I may have a little waterfall. Probably is what the direction I'll go with. Maybe some bank here and a bank here with some trees. So we're just going to get started here, and I'm just going to grab a little angular 1/2-inch brush, and I think what we're going to do to start with is we're going to develop a little bit of highlights on some of these clouds. So I'll go through my palette here as we go. I've got some titanium white that I'm pulling out here, a little bit of alizarin crimson, and that's a little pinker than what I'm wanting. So we're going to lighten it up a little bit, and I didn't mix it real well. I just kind of added a little bit on there. So it's going to be blending a lot of it here on the canvas itself. And all I'm doing is basically just touching a few spots, letting, kind of lightening it up, just where maybe the light might be hitting a little brighter on some of these clouds. And if you look at the clouds, and I sit and stare up at the sky a lot, if you take the time and look, there are so many layers of shadows and colors that in the cloud formations, and I enjoy seeing how they develop and move especially in the evening when the sun begins to go down, and how the light plays off of those clouds is quite fun and enjoyable to watch for me. I know it's kind of, you sound a little crazy to maybe to some of you, but for me it's just a joy to watch, and it gives me a lot of inspiration when I sit down and just start painting, trying to remember back to some of those situations that I saw and how the clouds kind of played against each other, and the lights against the darks, and if you've noticed here as I was talking, I've just kind of scumbled a few different places, highlighting a few lighter spots in those cloud formations. And I say this often, that there's I could try to duplicate this, and I go off of pictures a lot of times for my paintings, but a lot of the time it's just kind of as you start painting, certain things will just pop out, and there's no way to really duplicate it exactly like you would see in a photograph. I mean, you could, I suppose, but I like being free with it and just kind of letting it happen on the canvas. So just grabbed a little bit more of this, and I'm just gonna, some of these spots. I want to make it a little brighter on those across this mountain that's in the background here. You know, maybe there's a mountain that you want to paint specifically, and you know, you can sure do that. This is just one that's just kind of, I just made up out of my head, and so there's not any specific shape that I'm trying to follow. I've done several of them of different mountains, of Mount Hood, and Mount Rainier was one that I did. A couple of big ones of Mount Rainier. And I'm just going to grab just a hair bit of, let me see where it's at, a little bit of Payne's Gray, and I'm going to mix it with that pinkish color that I made up with the alizarin crimson. So it's just grayed that down a little bit, and I'm going to use that kind of maybe as a few darker areas of shadowing that are on this mountain. And I know that without having any warning, you didn't know I was going to be painting on this picture, but maybe if you've started this in the past, maybe you can pull it up on YouTube and watch this if you want to get caught up on your own painting, if maybe you've started this, and that way you can kind of participate with that. I think that's always fun, and I love hearing that people are doing that are painting the pictures that along with me. So now I'm just grabbing kind of now just a little bit lighter, and I just want to come back in with a little more of those pinks, just touching a few spots, maybe where the sun is maybe lighting up a little bit here of highlights. That looks pretty good. This is too orange in here, so I want to just take and just dry brush. And a lot of you that term aren't familiar with the term dry brush. What I mean by dry brush is because I had put paint up here on the mountain, I had very, very little paint in my brush, and so it was basically just the residue that's left on the brush, so there's not a lot of paint on it, and that's what I mean by dry brushing. You can just kind of lightly go over an area. In fact, I'll do it right up here in this orange spot where you can see it. So I'm just scumbling that across there. It's putting a layer of color down, but you're seeing all of the colors underneath of it that are popping through. So that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that sky, with the mountain. So now I want to take and develop out a little bit further this ridge line here of these foothills that are in the background. Now, those of you that have been following me know that, and I talk about this quite often, that if you stand and look at across a valley, the mountains that are the farthest away, the foothills that are the farthest away, are lightest, and then they get darker and more defined and more defined and more defined the closer that they get to you. So I want to take, this is really too fine here. It's too close a color to what we've got in the sky. So this needs to be defined out a little bit better here. I like this side. This is pretty good, but this bothers me here. And a lot of this is going to be covered up with some trees that we'll have over here on the side, but until we do that, it still bothers me. So I'm going to grab some, I just grabbed a little bit of my dioxazine purple, and I just put that right into that alizarin crimson, that white, that little bit of Payne's Gray. So we've got a real light lavender, periwinkle if you want to call it, color. And I'm just gonna kind of come down that ridge line. And that really sets that off better than what it was before. In fact, I like that so much that I'm going to do the same thing over here on this side. And I'm just going to follow that right up that line I've already got there for the ridge line. And I'm kind of at this point, because I have very little pigment on the brush, so this again, I'm doing a lot of that, what you would call dry brush technique. And I'm just putting in layers against the ones that are there. You can see the difference in the tonation between some of these areas here that are lighter and darker playing against each other. I want to add a little bit more as we get closer here, maybe a little more distinct ridge line that's coming down here of a foothill that's a lot closer to us. So I'm going to take and just add a little bit more of that purple in there to darken it up, and maybe just a hint of a little bit of the alizarin crimson. Maybe a little on the too pinkish side. I want it more towards those purple hues. And yeah, it's a little darker. I still want it a hair bit darker. It's one of those things, you know, you can mix it. If you notice, I do mix on the can or on the palette, but so much of the time I take and actually start doing the mixing actually up here on the canvas itself. And a lot of times, you know, it looks good on the palette, but when you get it up onto the canvas, you'll realize, oh, it's too light or it's too dark, and you need to take and adjust that. And I like that. You've got this plane between where it definitely makes a depth perception here of these foothills versus the ones that are in the background. And that's what we're trying to accomplish here, is we want to try to distinguish that and establish that. And if you notice, I'm tapping here, and sometimes I'm coming down just these real loose strokes that are coming down. Part of that, what I'm doing is giving the illusion of some trees that are there when I'm doing this tapping motion, and I darken this up a little bit more, and so we're just bringing down another layer of those foothills. I think this is probably the last layer we'll do, and then we'll put in kind of some more foothills. It's been really frustrating not being able to paint in my studio, and you know, it makes you sure appreciate things that happen in your life, and the good things that we've got. Right now, there's just so much going on in our world that it's nice to have something that you can go to that is a relief away from the stresses of our world. And that's been really frustrating for me because I haven't had an escape from the politics and all this stuff that's been going on. Now what I did is I took, just while I was talking there, grabbed some cobalt blue along with that dioxazine purple. And what I want to do is I want to take now, and I just want to put in maybe an indication of just some trees and shrubs that are closer into the foreground here, and then we'll come back in and do some highlighting on those here in a bit. But I'm just got that 1/2-inch brush, and you could almost call those like a fir tree that are there in the background. But again, they're so far back that it really isn't going to matter a whole lot whether it's, you can actually distinguish them as being fir trees. But there's enough of the characteristics of it to most of the time your eye will go, oh, those are fir trees that are there in the background. And these will need a little more defined, I think, on this side. And we'll come in and do some highlighting here in a minute, but we'll do maybe some bushes that are foliage that's here in this area. And I think like I said, I think we'll come in here maybe and do a little waterfall with maybe a little stream coming off the side. And so what I want to do is I'm just grabbing some of that Payne's Gray, and I want to put in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my palette knife just to make this, show you a little different way of doing this. So I'm just grabbing my palette knife, maybe grabbing in just a little bit of the titanium white, and I've got a real marbled look there on that. And let's see, let's put, maybe there's a big rock formation here. And let's grab a little more of that titanium white. So we've got a real marbled look on the canvas, or on the palette there. And I want to just take those and utilize that when I get up here onto the canvas, because all that paint mixes, and it gives it a real mottled look like you would have with stone. And we'll go with a big rock that's over here on this side. Need a little bit more paint on there. There we go. And I'm just going to take and pull some of that down, and I'm going to add in just a little bit of the cobalt blue in there as well. And we're just going to take and just do some of these rocks that come down along the edge of that waterfall. You know, maybe there's a waterfall that you like, and this would be an opportunity for you to, to paint one of those. But if you don't have one, just kind of go out of your imagination. I think it's fun to see how things develop. When you start just putting paint down, and you'll find that you'll start seeing certain things pop out as you're doing it, which is, it's exciting. You go, oh man, that would be a great place to put a tree, or a stream would look really cool right there. Now, these are, I haven't taken a whole lot of time, if you've noticed, as far as shapes. I've just kind of blocked in some different colors for where those rocks will be, and we'll take and define those a little more in the coming week. So I'm going to grab now my big, pull the whole end of the brush off there. I just grabbed my 1/2-inch brush here and just going to quickly give it a rinse out. And I want to take now, and we'll put in where that water line is that's coming down into our little waterfall. So there's lots of ways of doing this, and I've done several of these over the last year, but so maybe this is a little different than what I've done in the past, but that's okay. It gives you something different. So I've loaded up that 1-inch brush, and I'm just coming across and then just pulling down, coming across, pulling down. And very quickly you can see that you can put in a really nice little waterfall. And you can make this waterfall as big or as small as you would like, but I think for for our sake, we're going to go about like right here for the bottom of it. And what I'm doing is I'm just tapping, and what I've done is it's picked up a little bit of the grays that are in the brush, which is what I wanted, because when we can come back in now in the next week, we can take and highlight this water that's come down into where it might be splashing a little bit. So I'm just going to grab some of that blue, that cobalt blue, and I want to just take now and just kind of do some kind of a little bit of going back and forth with that lighter blue. And if you notice, I'm leaving some of those lavenders and pinks that were on the canvas. I'm allowing those to pop and show through. And I'm doing that because we want to give the illusion that the colors that are up here in the sky are actually going to be depicted and reflected down into the water down below. And so that's the reason why I did that with that dry brush. I'm going to go straight into some just straight blue, that cobalt blue, and I just want maybe a little bit darker, a few little spots where maybe the water's just a little deeper. Maybe it's, again, this is one of those things that I spend so much time out looking at nature and studying it, because you'll see often that there's lots and lots more colors involved than what you would think there are. That's pretty good. I think what we'll do now is we need to develop out these sides here, what we're going to do. So I think I'm going to take a little those, and part of this is, you're not going to find a lot of these colors just like this out in nature, but it's more to set a tone for the painting, and I just want you to don't feel like you're boxed into a certain way of doing something. You can paint it any way you want, use any colors that you want, and that's the fun of this, is that you have that freedom. Now what I did there is I just kind of grabbed just some a little bit of everything in the brush there, just adding some different colors and just doing the tapping motion to get kind of some different ideas of some foliage maybe that's there. And we'll define out those rocks a little more next week after they dry. Just putting in kind of just some outline here of just some foreground, maybe some foliage that's right along the edge here. This is just such a fun. I just grabbed in a little bit, even red that's in there, just to kind of add a little different flavor to the colors that are there. And I'm just coming down, doing a little bit of a shoreline across the side here. I sure hope that you're doing some painting or doing things that are to make your life better and creative. I say it all the time. That's the kind of the standing thing for this show, is that I believe that everybody needs to have that creative outlet and in doing something. And I sure know that for the last couple of weeks for me, it's been really difficult not being able to paint, because it's my it's my creative outlet, and it's the one thing that I enjoy that it helps get me relaxed and stressed free from the daily grind of life. And I know we've got a long ways to go with that, but at least that gives you kind of an idea of where we're going. We'll develop out these rocks a little bit more next week and work on the waterfall, develop out this foreground a little bit more. This is a little darker here than what probably you would think it would be. We're going to take and mist that all up where there might be some steam or mist that's coming up. So this will all be kind of developed a little bit more, but at least we've got a nice start to it, underpainting. I hope you enjoyed watching that, and next week we'll just keep developing it a little bit more. We'll see how far we get next week. Maybe we can get it finished up and finished, and maybe it might take an additional week. We'll just have to play it by ear and see. I'd like to leave you with these few little thoughts. We've got a tremendous amount of stress right now within our world. We've got all of the political stuff that's happening with the presidential election, and it just seems like we're being bombarded with information and all sorts of corruption that seems to be going on both sides of the party, and a lot of things happening with bombings and killings and with police officers and Black Lives Matter and all of this craze with the Pokemon and people that are being killed, being injured because they stopped in the middle of the freeway to get a Pokemon. Just seems like our world is just gone crazy here lately, and I try to be very positive and try to look at life try to find the good and the positive in things. It's been really hard when you see so much negative that's out there. And I truly believe that we need to work hard daily at staying positive and encouraging those around us. Just because your friend or relative or neighbor doesn't agree the same as you do politically, it doesn't matter. Love that person, encourage them, bless them. That's what we need. We don't need the conflict, and we don't need the tearing down of each other. Someone here, I just saw it yesterday, some friends that have been on Facebook that went to school together, 30-year plus friends, and they're at odds with each other over the politics and blocking each other and friends blocking, and it's crazy. We need to come together in love and support and encouragement. We're in a very important transition time in our world, and it's important for those of you like me that are out there to share that love, share the blessings, encouragement, and support in unity and trying to bring peace to those around us. Find peace within yourself. Take time, shut off multimedia, your phone, whatever it takes, so that you can take some time to respite away from the worries and the cares of the world. Until next week, have a blessed and creative week. Thank you for joining me here on Art and Soul.